Welcome back, my students, to a brand new episode of Comic Class. Today's lesson is really looking at Stanley and Steve Ditko's The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 36, When Falls the Meteor. And yeah, this is the introduction of a villain called, I think, Meteor Man. And yeah, not really the most unique of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Definitely probably a C-lister, just like the last video when we talked about the Multi-Man, but overall really good issues. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Let's go. So this story basically starts off with a scientist, and this scientist basically was able to, like, he was working on a meteorite, I guess, that had fallen from space, and this meteorite let out a gas, and the gas basically affected this professor, this scientist, and he gained like superhuman strength and stuff like that, able to lift stuff that's like 100 pounds, like lifting a feather, basically, as he says. And overall, it's just a really cool scene. Now we go to Peter basically in college, and he tries having interactions with people, and a girl basically talking to Gwen Stacy, basically thinking that he's not that bad, and basically told her that that he'd be cool with hanging out with her. But when she says that, she hangs out with him because he's smart, he sees this kind of like, this could be the same thing about, like, with Betty Brant, where she doesn't accept everything about him just because he's smart. She likes him, so he basically blows her off. And she sees this as rude and basically tells Gwen that she's right, that Peter is kind of like, stuck up and basically like that, all about himself. We know that's not true, and that he's dealing with the breakup with Betty Brant, a forceful breakup that didn't even really break up. She basically just left, which was really messed up. So he's dealing with that, and it made sense that he wouldn't want to dive into another relationship just right away, even though he almost did, in the beginning of the conversation. But the Meteor Man basically goes off, and he uses an enhanced jumping ability and super strength to basically go and rob, I think, a bank or something like that. And he calls himself the Looter. So he's not the Meteor Man, he's called the Looter. Now, he uses this like device that blinds his opponents and the cops, basically, and he's able to get away with all this money. So it's kind of crazy. Now Peter's having like a science trip with his high school class, or it's not a high school, a college class. They basically go to this like science place, and they see the meteorite that gave the Looter his abilities, his powers. And the Looter basically goes in front of the meteorite and basically tries, I guess, to steal it. And Peter runs off and basically gets to his Spider-Man costume, and he gets to a battle with the Looter. And the Looter basically is using the environment to basically try to break valuable items that Spider-Man is basically trying to make sure that they don't break during the fight. And throughout the fight, they're basically able to land hits on each other, with, of course, Spider-Man probably holding back, not knowing if this guy is a regular dude or not. And eventually the guy uses his bright attack, his little flashlight that he uses to basically try to blind everyone, and Spider-Man as well. Spider-Man knows that because he has the ability of his spider sense, that he can just close his eyes and not get affected by the bright beam that, the flashlight basically that the Looter is using. And he's able to save some bystanders, basically, that almost got crushed by one of the Looter, basically pushing this giant thing of machinery basically on these people. And Spider-Man was able to save them because he wasn't blinded, so that was really good. So he basically saves these people, but realizes that the Looter basically got away. Now, we also get to see that Peter basically was able to not get caught, and people basically are making fun of him, thinking that he ran away basically from the danger, not knowing that, he's Spider-Man. And the Looter basically got into his regular outfit, and got out of his Looter outfit, and realizes that he really wants the meteor, that it has to be his someday. That he's gonna have to work harder to try to get it without Spider-Man, foiling his plans. And Peter's interaction with Gwen Stacy basically tells her that he doesn't understand why she's being so, like, harsh to him. And I'm really liking that Peter's not letting it get to him too much. But yeah, so Peter basically gets to his Spider-Man costume again once he's out of that science situation, and he goes and he actually confronts the looter yet again. And they basically get into a confrontation in the air with the looter, basically, I guess, coming up with the idea that, Spider-Man won't be able to catch him in the air, despite him fighting villains like the Green Goblin, who uses an air mobile device. It's kind of weird. But Peter uses like a high beam, I guess is what it's called. He basically jumps off of that and basically grabs onto the looter. The looter tries to use super strength to basically try to knock Peter out of the air and try killing him, I guess. And Peter basically grabs the looter's leg and says he's not going to let go. Eventually, he just lands a right hook, I guess pulling some of his strength out and not holding him back completely. And this just knocks the looter out in a single hit, which kind of proves the point that Spider-Man was holding back the entire fight throughout the story. And he takes off the mask and realizes that this guy, he doesn't know who he is. He's just going to have to give him to the police and they'll probably be able to identify him. So he gets them, basically, he hits the balloon that the looter was using at a little bit at a time, basically to get the air to come out a little bit at a time, basically get him to land safely on the ground where the police are, because they're already waiting for the looter. And he basically gets off the thing before it lands on the ground, getting on one of the buildings, and shines his spider signal on the looter, that way the police can grab him, letting them know that Spider-Man saved the day once again. And that's how the issue ends, with Spider-Man basically saving the day from the looter and giving him to the police. And Spider-Man saving the day usually is the ending for most of these issues, but yeah, that's how it ends. And that was Stan Lee's Ditko's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 36, When Falls the Meteor. Overall, very solid issue. Probably not as good as the last 2 or 3 issues, but still solid as everything else in this run has been. The looter isn't that very interesting, but I think the stuff that revolves around the plot, such as Peter's relationship with his fellow classmates, or college mates, I guess, is really interesting, and hopefully that develops to something more in the future issues. And yeah, until next video, guys, God bless you. Until the next lesson, keep on reading those comments.